Our featured artist this week is Mr. David Bowie, and he's coming right up after this track from Jesus Jones. A little look back to 1969 there with Mr. David Bowie, his 7th single release, but his first to actually achieve chart success. We're going to take a little look at Mr. David Bowie over this next hour of MTV's Postmodern, and as I'm sure you're aware, his career has taken in the likes of the Thin White Duke, Ziggy Stardust, Major Tom, the Spiders from Mars, he was in the Tin Machine, and of course he's just released an album, Black Tie, White Noise, and we'll be taking a look at a single off that later on in the show. Coming up, we've got music from Iggy Pop, a good friend of Mr. David Bowie and collaborator. We've got Bauhaus performing Ziggy Stardust, and right now we have Mr. David Bowie doing Jean Genie. There's a little typo, I think, on the way that this video is captioned, but you don't have to worry about that. Before we see the video, which was a hit for him in 1972, we talked to Mr. David Bowie when he's talking about when he recently saw some early footage of himself when he was a younger man performing, and just how he reacted when he saw this.
Like this. No, I don't know. I think it's a very painful piece of work. You know, I mean, I look like I'm in such pain. Really, it's probably because the jacket's so tight. I think I was probably a really troubled young man.
Iggy Pop and Real Wild Child, and of course I'm sure you're aware Iggy Pop has been a long-time friend and collaborator with David Bowie. He co-wrote David Bowie's hit China Girl, and of course David Bowie produced some of Iggy Pop's most commercially successful albums. Another person that David Bowie has worked with through the years on and off has been guitarist Mick Ronson. They worked together of course first on Spiders from Mars, and they both produced and worked on Mott the Hoople's All the Young Dudes. We spoke to David Bowie about his work with Mick Ronson and how he felt about working with him again on his current solo album, Black Tie, White Noise.
Well, probably what people don't know, and they shouldn't be expected to, is that every time I've toured since 1974, Mick has come on stage and worked with us at some point on the tour. I mean, I've been in contact with Mick all these years, all these 20 years. So we've kind of, you know, grown old together. But we've never been in the studio in those 20 years, and it was just such a good chance and a lovely thing to do. And when we were young, with the Spiders, one of the encore songs that we did was the Cream's I Feel Free. So we thought after 20 years we should record it. So we did, our way.
From Brit band Suede, and of course that's a band who openly acknowledge their debt to the performance of David Bowie, especially lead singer Brett Anderson. I think you can see David Bowie's influence quite clearly in the way that he performs on stage and on video, and in fact it was to the stage that we nearly lost David Bowie. He considered a career in mime and theatre, thankfully opted for music, so we can look back on some of his best work today on MTV's Postmodern. In fact, we're going to be taking a look at the video for Ashes to Ashes in a moment, but before that we talked to David Bowie about how he feels about music today and whether he follows today's musical trends at all.
Not to the point of obsession, but I'm very aware of what's happening musically, you know. Although on the other hand there's very little that really strikes me that makes me want to dive out and get it, you know. But there's some things that I like. I like Meat Beat Manifesto. I find them very interesting. Their approach is really interesting. I think it owes something to the Brian Eno school of working with music. I guess that's why I feel quite close to him. I quite like this new band Suede. I like what they're doing. Fascination for them. I was really depressed the Pixies broke up, naturally. I'm looking forward to hearing Frank Black's new album. In America, it's different. America, I think, is very much black and Hispanic scene that's of any interest over there. A lot of the white bands over there, there's a kind of a mundane quality that's attaching itself to a lot of American music.
Well, it's been great this hour to look back at some of the past music from David Bowie, and we're going to finish off Postmodern with his current track, Jump They Say, off his album Black Tie, White Noise. Next week's featured artist will be Jesus Jones, just a reminder in there. Bowie's current album, Black Tie, White Noise, is produced by Nile Rodgers, who was the man behind the controls on Bowie's 1983 smash album, Let's Dance, which catapulted Bowie from, I guess you could say, a cult figure right into the mainstream, where he's stayed well and truly since then. The single, Jump They Say, is really personal to David Bowie. It's a song about the suicide of his younger stepbrother, and he's going to tell us a bit about it before we see the video. Good night.
It's hard to know what to say about it, really, because it doesn't deal with it in depth. What it does is deal with, it's a series of impressions that I have about myself and my relationship with my brother. So it's quite fleeting in logic. My brother suffered from schizophrenia, acute schizophrenia and manic depression. And I think there are shades of my feelings of that particular...
We take to the streets once again now with the original Thin White Duke, David Bowie. His current album, Black Tie, White Noise, has been very well received by critics and fans alike. Bowie himself described it as a return to form after a relatively uninspired period in the late 80s. Well, unfortunately, it's not all good news. His career suffered a minor setback recently thanks to the financial collapse of his label, Savage Records. Maybe that explains the location of his latest video. This is Black Tie, White Noise. Featuring the talents of L.B. Sure, that was David Bowie and Black Tie, White Noise. Well, and that's nearly it for us today, so...